Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Providing Availability in a Flash. This special webinar event is brought to you in partnership with Pure Storage and Veeam. Thank you so much for everyone taking time out of your day to join us on this event. We've got a great event lined up for you. Before I introduce you to today's expert presenters, just a few things that you should know about this webinar. First off, we want this to be an educational event. We at Actual Tech Media, we're all former IT professionals ourselves. We know how difficult and challenging it can be to solve your technology problems, in the data center and in the cloud, especially when it comes to storage and data protection. So we're here to help you solve those challenges, and we encourage you to use the questions box. It's there in your audience console. It's on the left-hand side. I can call your attention to it this way. And of course, we appreciate all the good morning messages, but we also want your technical questions. We'll be doing a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, so keep those questions coming in, and I'll be queuing up the best questions for the end of the webinar. We also have a handout available for download there in your audience console. I encourage you to download that now. This is the solution brief on optimizing data protection with Veeam and Pure Storage. So make sure that you download that and check it out after the event. It's got some more detailed information above and beyond what you'll learn on the webinar today. And then finally, we'll be announcing the winner of an Amazon $300 gift card at the end of the presentation. If you're watching this on demand, I'm sorry, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found in the handouts tab. And finally, I should mention that my name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. And with that, I'm excited to introduce you to today's expert presenters. They are Mr. David Huskisson, Rapid Restore Solutions Manager at Pure Storage, and Mr. Sean Liu, Solutions Architect at Veeam. David and Sean, it's great to have you on the webinar today. And with that, I'll hand it off. Take it away.
Thank you, David. So to start, I just want to kind of preface what we're going to be discussing today, right? First, I'm just going to give you a brief overview for those of you that may not be familiar with Veeam, just kind of a brief overview on who we are, what we do, and specifically what we're going to be doing with Pure, right? So we're going to be talking about what we have from a solutions perspective with Pure Storage today, both from a source and from a target perspective, right? We're introducing a new solution for a target for Veeam backups to help enhance what you're doing from a data protection standpoint. Right, so to begin, let's just talk a little bit about Veeam and what we do. Right, we were born for virtualized environments. This is where Veeam was really strong, and this is where we kind of grew up in. Right, but our solution has evolved since then from being just the #1 virtualization backup solution to now the Veeam data protection platform, right, which encompasses more than just virtualized environments, whether it be VMware vSphere or Microsoft Hyper-V. We also give you options now for handling physical servers, specific applications like SAP HANA, Microsoft SQL, right? We have different plugins for different mission critical applications. And then we also have our integrations with the different cloud providers, right? Whether you're leveraging a certified Veeam cloud provider or whether you're going to more of your hyperscale cloud providers like your AWSs and your Azures. We have support for all of those different platforms and give you the flexibility to move your data between the platforms as needed, right? In fact, we actually introduced a new licensing model recently called Veeam Universal License. Right, and the nice thing about the Veeam Universal License is the fact that it is very portable. Whether you're protecting a workload that's on premises, in a private cloud, in a public cloud, the license moves with the application and is not tied to any particular instance. Whether it's on-prem and you move it to the cloud, you utilize the same license. Okay, so that's a departure from what we've done in the past with our per socket license, because the per socket really kind of anchors you to on-prem equipment. So we've made that change just to give you that flexibility. So as you move workloads to different locations, you can rest assured that you don't have to purchase different license or new license to make sure that workload is protected. So now I'm going to pass it off to Mr. David Huskisson just to give you a brief overview on the FlashArray product, and we'll talk a little bit more about how Veeam leverages this really great Flash platform for data availability.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So just in the same way that Sean has done a great level set on Veeam, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes here and do a quick level set on FlashArray. So for those of you who are existing Pure customers or thinking of becoming a Pure customer, you'll know that FlashArray X was the first built from the ground up native all-flash enterprise storage array. And that's really how sort of Pure was born. That's what propelled us to being a public company, a few years ago. And, not only was, the uniqueness was not only the fact we weren't a hybrid array, we were an all-flash array built, entirely for all-flash. So all the optimizations you can drive we delivered in the Purity operating system. But I think one of our most proudest achievements is our what we call our evergreen business model, which I think has largely disrupted the storage industry. And the evergreen model really allows you to buy a flash array, and we'll talk about Flashblade later, but allows you to buy a flash array and keep that flash array not only updated with the latest software releases for the Purity operating system, but also as you guys are all IT professionals, you know how quickly technology changes. And so Evergreen not only allowed you to keep abreast of the latest software enhancements that we made with Purity when we delivered active cluster and replication and so on, but also as hardware improved and got smaller and faster, we would come to customers and we would fit new controllers non-disruptively as part of your agreement with Pure. And that was really the first time in the storage industry there was an organization that was delivering on that. And so more recently, probably it feels more recently, but it's probably over a year now, we introduced our second version of FlashArray. So the current we've got FlashArray X, which is the high performance, very low latency, all flash array. But last year, and it was really around customer demand. We listened to our customers like everyone does very carefully, and customers were telling us they wanted a slightly different version of FlashArray. So that really led to FlashArray C being born, which effectively had a lower cost flash storage in it. So this ships with QLC flash. But the beauty of C, as you'll see shortly, is it gives you all the features and functions that you've come to love on FlashArray X, but it delivers it with a slightly different form factor with QLC flash. So it opens up a whole set of new use cases. And what's been great about our partnership with Veeam is that FlashArray is being able to leverage capabilities come in over the next year or so, delivering a lot more benefit, for organizations. And I just want to quickly move on and the bedrock to set up what Sean's going to talk about, but the bedrock of a lot of our capabilities in FlashArray, whether it's X or whether it's C, is our snapshot capabilities. And it really provides the jumping off point for all the other clever things that we do. Everyone is really familiar with snapshots, but we've made them, extremely quick, extremely lightweight. They behave like any other volume. You can mount them, you can read, you can write to them. Then you start to get into replication and active cluster and so on. So, at the core of a lot of the work we've done with Veeam is our snapshot integration. So let me pass it back to Sean here. Sean.
All right, thank you, David. So yeah, just to build upon what David was talking about with the snapshot efficiencies present in the Purity operating system, right? Just kind of to evolve your data protection solution, you really need to take advantage of those types of efficiencies, right? In the past, when Veeam was coming up and our initial data protection solutions for vSphere, we really heavily relied on vSphere snapshots, right? And that's both a benefit and could be a detriment, right? Just depending on your environment, what type of applications you're running, right? What type of latencies you're getting in the environment. But the big thing is with vSphere-based snapshots, what you could encounter is it's not really the creation or the backup process, right? You really could potentially encounter problems when you go to consolidate those snapshots. Right, those snapshots could result in high load on the storage array. It could result in even potentially stun on the applications, right? Which, if you're running mission critical applications that may be latency sensitive, right, this could really cause some issues for you. We've seen issues in the past where it causes things like availability groups to fail over, different problems like that. Right. So what we've done here with our integration with the Purity OS and FlashArray is the ability to actually leverage those really efficient snapshots on the FlashArray itself, and we can perform our backups directly off of the snapshots created on FlashArray. And the nice thing about that is when we go to remove those snapshots, of course, you can also choose to retain those snapshots for retention purposes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But you can remove those snapshots at will without impacting your environment. Right. So really the biggest benefit about this type of integration, being able to back up from a storage snapshot, is just being able to make the data path more efficient and less impactful to your environment, right? So no longer do you have to wait for off hours to perform backups, but you can perform backups during the day when your usage rate may be higher than off hours. So the nice thing about being able to leverage storage snapshots for data protection is that you can also use it to augment your data protection strategy. Right? Because what we can do is, instead of having to perform backups all the time, right? Most of our customers usually only perform backups once or twice a day. In this particular example, a customer is only performing a backup once per day. Right now, if you're familiar with the term RPO and RTO, right, we're really talking about here is RPO, or recovery point objectives. Right, this is essentially the amount of data that you could potentially lose should you have an outage. Right, so if in this particular example you're backing up once per day, if you're only backing up once per day, you could potentially lose up to 24 hours worth of data. Right? So that is probably not acceptable for most customers nowadays. Right? In fact, customers are very resistant to any type of data loss nowadays. Right? So what we can do is we can actually augment our data protection solution with FlashArray-based snapshots. Right? And what we can do here is we can schedule not only backups, but we can also schedule snapshots during the day without actually taking a backup. Right, and you can do all of this natively within the Veeam console, so you don't have to go to different interfaces to schedule it. Right, so we can do this all within Veeam, so we have full visibility into not only the amount of snapshots we have available, but also the amount of backups we have available. Right, and this is how we streamline your data protection strategy. So now, if in this example we're taking snapshots once an hour in between our backups, we've effectively shrunk our recovery point objective to an hour. Right, so instead of having a 24-hour RPO, we now have a once per hour RPO. Okay, so all of this doesn't mean a whole lot unless you can actually perform recoveries from it. Right, so the reason why we perform backups and the reason why we want to take all of these different snapshots is because at some point we may need to recover from them. Right, so the nice thing about what we provide is the same recovery type options, whether you're restoring from a backup or from a snapshot. Right, that's really where the rubber meets the road, is providing that type of granularity from both a backup recovery and from a snapshot recovery. Right, so even from a crash consistent snapshot that Veeam did not even create. Right, so even if you already have pre-existing snapshots on a FlashArray and you install Veeam and you link it up together, we'll automatically go and scan, interrogate the FlashArray, and find out all of the pre-existing snapshots that have vSphere VM information on it, and we'll catalog it in our system and allow you to be able to perform restores directly out of those snapshots. And the different recovery options you have is not only being able to restore full virtual machines, but you could also restore things like individual guest files inside of a virtual machine, being able to even pull individual application items out for your more popular applications like Exchange, SQL, SharePoint, Active Directory, even Oracle. Right? So we can do things like restore a single email from a snapshot. And then we can do so very efficiently. We actually have what I'm talking about here is the Veeam Explorer for storage snapshots, but we also have Veeam Explorers for all of these different applications that we support as well. And the goal of those different explorers, like for example, take the Veeam Explorer for Exchange, is to really help streamline the recovery process. Right, so no longer do you have to go and mount the EDB. No longer do you have to go and dig for what you need. The Veeam Explorer guides you through all of that, provides filter functionality, so you can filter for a single piece of mail and be able to do so within a matter of minutes, not hours. Another really great capability is being able to leverage your data. Right, in the past, I talked to a lot of customers, and they perform backups. One, they don't even know if they can recover from their backups, right? Because they rarely test them. And two, they never leverage those backups for any use case other than to be able to restore in case they have a disaster. Right? So that's a very limited use case for backups when we can be doing so much more with backups. And Veeam really helps to enable that capability with our data labs technology. Right? What this is going to allow you to do is it actually has two different capabilities. One is called Sure Backup, right? And that's built on top of this. So what we're able to do is we can actually create an isolated environment right alongside your production environment. So it doesn't require you to run out and buy any dedicated hardware just to run this type of capability. Right? So we can run it right alongside production. And what Veeam can do is we can actually power on virtual machines, whether that virtual machine resides in a backup or from a snapshot, right? We can do it from both. And we can power it up inside of this isolated environment. Now, if you're running it as a Sure Backup job, what Sure Backup does is it actually performs automated recovery verification for you, right? So if you're not testing your backups often or often enough, right, you can use this to do so automatically and provide you with a, I like to call it a morning coffee report, right? So when you come in the morning, you have this report on your desk where you can just go and quickly glance to make sure everything's okay and move along, right? So you're not spending a lot of time with recovery verification. And that's what Sure Backup's going to give you. It'll go in there, it'll test to make sure not only is the application recoverable, but you can also run customized test scripts against the application to make sure it functions as you would expect it to in production, right? And then it'll automatically turn everything off, clean itself up, and send you that morning coffee report. Now, you can also use this type of environment for what we call data labs, right? And data labs really helps to unlock a bunch of different capabilities and do so very efficiently, right? So I can actually leverage my backups for other use cases, right? I talk to a lot of customers that have dedicated test dev environments, right? And test dev environments are not only expensive because they usually have dedicated hardware, but they also have overhead, right? Because most test dev environments that I come into, they're normally lagging behind production, right? Whether it be a week, 2 weeks, sometimes even a month. Right, so that test dev environment, I mean, while it is semi-production like, it is not very production like, right? Because the data may be stale, it may be old, right? There may have been some changes in the last couple of days that it doesn't accurately reflect. Well, the nice thing about the data hub is we can actually use that sandbox and we can power up these environments off of snapshots or off of backups, and you can use it for test dev. Not only is it efficient and doesn't require dedicated hardware, but the nice thing is now you can power it up from a backup that was taken a couple of hours ago, or a snapshot that was taken 5 minutes ago, right? So now I have a very much production-like environment that I can perform different capabilities inside, right? Whether I'm using it for test dev, whether I'm using it for security or compliance and analysis, there's a number of different use cases for this. And we also have some other capabilities around this that we'll talk about more later, right? But this allows you to unlock your data protection strategy, right? Really helps you to help. You can even use this to help initiate different trainings, software development, right? Really help to accelerate your productivity. And now I'll pass it right back to David just to talk a little bit more about efficient snapshot tiering.
Thank you, Sean. So just sort of building out the story that Sean's just talked about. So bringing FlashArray//C into the family allows us to do, 2 or 3 things here. So you can see from this slide, one of the big use cases we're seeing with FlashArray//C is the ability to tier snapshots. So what do we mean by that? So, I've got my, my VM farm working away on FlashArray//X. I'm taking snapshots that Sean has talked about with Veeam. And then I can easily, I may want to keep 24 hours worth of snapshots locally on the X if I have to do quick recovery, but I may want to keep 30 days of snapshots. Maybe I want to present some of those snapshots to a DevOps group or to some analytics applications, but I don't necessarily want to keep them on my my tier 1 production storage. So what we can do, it's very easy to tier, very easy to move off those snapshots that Veeam has orchestrated and actually just move those across to a FlashArray//C. And in the future, we'll be making that a lot more of a kind of automated process, but it's absolutely possible today. And so, what you'll typically end up with are, 24 hours of snapshots on an X, and then, maybe 30 days, 40 days on a C. And obviously you get all the efficiencies of dedupe and so on as you get on X, as you get on with C. And then you get into, there's then a multitude of recovery options. If I realize that my X has got corrupted or an application error and, I don't spot it for, over 24 hours, I can quickly just move back a snapshot from C back to X and spin it up again. As Sean has already talked about, you can leverage Veeam Data Labs on a C with snapshots. So again, if you just want to do a quick recovery, you want to quickly have a look at a VM, we can just mount that up, and then you can do a longer rebuild and get that snapshot and start running actually running virtual machines natively on a C. And again, that's potentially a good use case for applications that don't require the high performance of an X. So that's sort of the first thing, in conjunction with Veeam, we can provide around the snapshot piece. And then I guess the sort of, and we'll come back to this a little bit later, but we're also starting to see customers use just for, maybe as a snapshot offload target, but where I'm doing regular kind of IP backups of VMs with Veeam, using C as the Veeam repository. And one of the real beauties there is you can see from this slide, we get pretty good performance numbers, both from a backup and recovery perspective. Data Labs works nicely on a FlashArray//C, so that's a great use case. But what we're also able to leverage is the deduplication algorithms that are built into Purity. And again, FlashArray//X has had deduplication inside of Purity, really since inception. And all we've really done is just really done the same for FlashArray//C. So we can really improve the storage efficiency of your VM backups and your snapshot offloads to C using Purity. And again, you can see some numbers on the slide here. I just want to caution, again, you're all professionals, you know the sort of dangers of numbers. All of these numbers you see here were reproduced in our lab, so maybe not necessarily under performance conditions, but they're a good indicator of the kind of performance numbers and the rate of storage efficiency you should be able to get with Veeam and a FlashArray//C. So I'm going to move it back to Sean here.
That's your mileage may vary type of slide, right? But
Indeed, I could make that bigger.
The great thing about what David was talking about, right, being able to kind of stage off the snapshots and also using it as a backup target, right, that probably brings up the question, and we get it a lot, right, is why do we need both, right? Why do we need snapshot tiering? Why do we need backups too? Right, so there's it's all about mitigating risk, right? So when you take a backup off of a snapshot, now you have, if you're not familiar with what Veeam does with our backup file format, is it's a self-contained portable file format, right? So once you take a backup with Veeam, now you can actually take that backup, and if you need super long-term retention, right, which a lot of, especially if you're like in different fields that mandate retention for 7, 10, 18, forever, right? I've even seen forever retention, right? You probably don't want to keep forever retention on a flash array, right? So you're going to have to tear that off even more at some point, whether that be to tape or whether that be to cloud or to any other type of media that you're going to want to do that to. That's where the backup self-contained backup file format comes in handy, because you'll be able to do so and still be able to potentially recover in the future if you ever need to bring that back. Right. So with that being said, let's just move on to a couple of different use cases that we recently introduced for our data labs technology, right? So this is bringing up those virtual machines directly off of the backup or directly off of the snapshot and being able to use it for a couple of different use cases, right? One of them is called staged restore. And this is really for those customers or those of you out there that may have the need to be GDPR compliant, right? Or even if you just have the need to make sure that if a customer has asked you not to keep their information around, right, that you can do so, right? And what Stage Restore allows you to do is essentially it allows you to bring up an application that you're looking to restore into production and be able to execute a script against it prior to restore, right? So we can go in, run that script, and strip out all of the sensitive information that needs to be stripped out before it gets restored back into production so that your production environment remains compliant. So that is Stage Restore. The other really great use case is termed Secure Restore, right? And this is really around the ransomware or malware use case, right? Let's say you run into an incident and you have an infection in production, right? So now you've discarded the infected application, right? And you're planning on restoring that application from a backup, right? The last thing you want to do is reintroduce the infection back into production again, right? And that's where Secure Restore comes in, because what this allows you to do is, and this is can all happen in automated fashion, right? So you can choose how you want Veeam to act depending on whether we find it infected or not, right? So what we can do is we can bring online that application that you're looking to restore inside this isolated environment so it doesn't infect anything else, right? And then we can execute a scan against it. Just a little tip here, right? If you're running, let's say, some sort of anti-malware or antivirus protection in your production environment, you can actually run a different anti-malware or antivirus protection inside of this. So you get two different products scanning the application, right? So you can execute that scan inside this isolated environment. And if Veeam doesn't find an infection, we'll of course continue to restore the application as you want it. The thing is, if we do find an infection, you have two different options here with Secure Restore. We can completely discard the restoration process, and you can go and choose a different restore point to then proceed through this Secure Restore process again. Or we can go ahead and restore the application anyway, because this is the restore point that you want, right? But we'll go ahead and disable all of the network adapters so you can go in and manually clean up whatever needs to happen prior to bringing it back online inside production, right? So this is a really great use case, can really help to just prevent any type of reinfection of your production environment. All right, back to you, David.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So we've talked a lot about FlashArray, X, and C, and I just as we sort of get towards the end of the session here, I just wanted to say a few words about Flashblade. So Flashblade was really Pure's second product after the success of FlashArray, and Flashblade, obviously all Flash, of course, but was designed really for a bunch of different, a completely different set of use cases. And hopefully you can see from the slide, its architecture is really quite different from FlashArray. So built on Blade technology, every blade has storage, network, and compute. Flashblade provides a single namespace, so it's very easy to scale. And our current Flashblade will give you up to about 6 petabytes of usable disk space. And this has generally been well received, especially in the data protection world. And it's quite different from, it's quite different from other technologies out there. It serves up, it's not a block storage device. It serves up NFS, it serves up SMB, and it also serves up S3. And from a sort of architectural perspective, every time you add blades, you obviously increase the storage available to your applications, but you also increase performance. So a fully populated Flashblade will have a write performance of around 90 to 100 terabytes an hour, but will have a read performance of near 270 terabytes an hour, sort of theoretical. And one of our more recent messages around Flashblade was introducing ransomware protection through our safe mode technology. So there's a lot of literature out there you can go read, but we've done a lot of joint work with Sean at Veeam and the team, looking at what we call safe mode, which is the product name, and being able to give you, another way of protecting your Veeam installation. And it's a beautifully simple capability that doesn't cost you anything from a license perspective. You're likely to need a little bit more storage. And, Flashblade, as well as being a great backup target, is also, is what we call the kind of data, what we call the data hub. And so you can see here that it's not designed solely as a backup target. In fact, 80% of our customers who use it for data protection are also using it for one or more other applications, such as a Splunk or a TensorFlow or Elastic or so on. So you can see here that, Flashblade, consolidates, if you like, large unstructured data applications, but our leading application, if you like, is data protection with Flashblade. So you're probably wondering, well, how does all of that kind of fit in? So really, before Sean sort of wraps it up here, you can see from this slide that there's a really great better together kind of story. So if you take the snapshot integration that Sean has outlined already, you can under the control of Veeam, and if you're not using FlashArray, we're doing IP backups of regular virtual machines. Our best practice architecture is really to have Flashblade there as almost like your rapid restore tier. So maybe you back up to Flashblade or offload snapshots to Flashblade, for a 30-day period. Part of that is you'll get ransomware protection through our safe mode layer that I just mentioned. And then, you can start to tier off, and I heard Sean sort of talk about retention. You can start to tier off those backups to a FlashArray C, where you're going to get better storage efficiency. And you can also use your FlashArray C, as I mentioned earlier, as your snapshot tiering. So this is what you're seeing here is really our best practice architecture, giving you rapid restore, ransomware protection, and then a more cost-efficient tier of storage, depending on what kind of retentions you've got for both your regular Veeam backups and also any snapshot, any Veeam orchestrated snapshots. And I think I'll just hand back to you, Sean, just to kind of summarize there.
Yep. Thank you, David. So just to kind of summarize what we offer as a joint solution, this is specifically with FlashArray//C, right? Is not only the ability to leverage snapshots for fast and efficient data recovery and being able to perform granular restores with our Veeam Explorer for storage snapshots, but just the fact that FlashArray//C can give you that really high capacity, really efficient storage, not only for long-term archival of your snapshots, but also for backups as well, right? Because with that deduplication that FlashArray//C offers, you can potentially retain backups on-prem longer. And then, of course, just the ability to be able to leverage high-performance block storage with Veeam. This does help to streamline Veeam deployments. If you're not familiar with what Veeam is, it is just a software solution, right? So it runs on top of Windows operating system is what the Veeam backup server runs on top of. But what you can do is we have different components, and with our proxy component, which does all of the data movement when you perform any type of backups, with FlashArray//C, what we can do is we can actually provide that block storage target directly to the Veeam proxy without any additional layers, right? So we can write directly to FlashArray//C, and we can read directly from FlashArray//X, right? So now you have a very efficient data stream, because with our backup from storage snapshots, we're not backing it up across your management interface or your production network, right? We're backing it up directly across the SAN fabric, right? So if your production array is fiber channel, the Veeam proxy is reading data across that fiber channel fabric, and then we're processing the data, and then we can write it right back out fiber channel. If the FlashArray//C happens to be fiber channel, right, we can write it back out that fiber channel fabric to the FlashArray//C. So very efficient, really helps to accelerate backups, and also helps to accelerate restores, right? Because we can perform restores a number of different ways as well. And if you're not familiar with how Veeam processes data, I could spend probably an hour talking about it, because we have all of these different methods of processing data. But the biggest thing to take away from that is that we can move data very efficiently, and we can move data so fast, in fact, we actually have an option inside Veeam Backup and Replication to essentially throttle how we're backing up based on the latency you're experiencing within your data stores. Right. So that's just kind of to summarize what we offer with Veeam and FlashArray//C. And to just kind of end it, let's take some questions, and we'll put up this slide here on the screen just to kind of highlight a win that we've had jointly together, and this kind of illustrates, right, what customers can do with our joint solution.
Great presentation, Sean and David. Really cool stuff, what you guys are doing together with Veeam and Pure Storage. And now it's time for some Q&A. So if you have a question about this solution, we've had a number of questions already coming in, so thank you for those. First question that I wanted to pose to, let's see, I think this one is for you, Sean, and that is there any extra software required to leverage the Pure integration?
That is a great question. There actually is extra software required to leverage the Pure integration, and that is really just having to download a plugin that is specific for FlashArray. However, it doesn't have any extra costs associated with it. So once you download the Veeam software, you just have to download the specific Pure plugin, and you just run that on the Veeam backup server.
Nice. Okay. And then next question here. This one's for you, David. How much does the Pure Storage ransomware solution cost? Not sure you can get into specific pricing details here. Of course, I'm sure the costs vary based on the size of the implementation, but what can you tell us?
Sure, I can certainly give some sort of general guidance. So our safe mode feature that we leverage for the ransomware protection with Veeam, the actual feature is just part of the Purity, the Flashblade Purity operating system. So there's no additional charge for the actual software component. Where it's likely there will be some extra cost is just in the amount of storage that you'll need to be able to use safe mode with, because under the covers, again, without going into lots of detail, safe mode is taking some special file system snapshots. So depending on your, it really comes down to the attitude of risk. I mean, some customers are pretty happy that they'll take snapshots for 30 days, and some customers want to take it for 200. So it's a sliding scale, just depending on the amount of time you wish to retain the snapshots for. But the software feature is just part of the Purity operating system.
And if I could just kind of dovetail on that a little bit, I know we've gone through a lot of different options today, from archiving snapshots to long-term backups, and it requires a lot of different calculations, right, to determine how much space you need on FlashArray-C, how much space you need on Flashblade, to do what you want to do. The good news is Pure and Veeam work very closely together. Our engineers do. So if you need specific guidance as to what you're looking to accomplish in your environment, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and don't think you have to do this on your own, right? Because I know it can be overwhelming just to kind of properly size what you need for your environment.
Yeah, really good point. Actually, our teams, from, as Sean said, the Veeam sort of teams, right from the engineering side, right down to partnership in the field, work very closely together. And certainly when it comes to sizing and as Sean said, we put up the best practice architecture there at the end, and it looked kind of overwhelming. But our Pure and Veeam, technical teams can, architect the right solution together for what you're trying to achieve.
Excellent. And there's a ton of good questions rolling in. Sean and David, if you have a chance to kind of prioritize or look at those, feel free to, interject with a question that you'd like me to ask or that you'd like to answer, I should say. Next question I wanted to ask here, this one caught my eye. This one is back to you, Sean. I know you mentioned Veeam Data Labs. They're asking if Data Labs is an extra cost.
That's a great question, right? And the nice thing is, I mentioned in the beginning that Veeam kind of transitioned to a new licensing model with Veeam Universal License. The beautiful thing about Veeam Universal License is not only is it portable, but it is all inclusive. So whether you want to leverage, Pure integration, whether you want to leverage Data Labs, whether you want to leverage the Veeam Explorers for all those different applications, plugins for different applications, it's all included.
Very nice. That's cool. I bet a lot of people didn't expect that answer because I don't think I did. So because Data Labs is a really cool feature. And next question, this comes from James out in the audience. He's asking, how does Pure Storage Flashblade actually deliver rapid restore? Can you go into some details on that, David?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I guess kind of a couple of sort of high level items, and obviously we'd be delighted to speak to you in more detail. But Pure Flashblade, as I said, when we were doing the presentation here, Flashblade is a blade architecture, and as you put more storage in because of the network and compute that comes with it, it increases key. That's part of the key to its performance. We don't have the sort of restore tax that you get with spinning disk. So, especially if you're using deduplication, if you look at other backup systems, they write in a deduplicated form, which is great for the backup. But as these things fill up, it slows down as the more data gets in there, because you're storing blocks, not sequential files, and there's a seek time, a physical seek time. So really, it's literally I think it's really, as a summary, it's two things. It's the it's the fact that it's all flash. That's the first big major advantage that you've got. And also, that additional compute and networking power that we deliver every time you add a blade, also sort of linearly runs up the performance you get with Flashblade. There's a lot more detail to it, but that's roughly the high level message there.
Okay. Thank you for going into detail on that. Very cool. Next question here. This one's for you, Sean. It's a lengthy question from Alex out there in the audience. But I mean, the summary here, I think, is, what can Veeam do and Pure Storage do to help Alex protect or better protect their SharePoint environment?
That's a great question, and we can absolutely help protect the SharePoint environment. There's a number of different options there. We actually have a Veeam wizard specific for SharePoint. So once we back it up, if you need to restore content, we can do so directly from a snapshot or from a backup using a wizard-driven approach that's designed for SharePoint.
Excellent. David, did you want to chime in a little bit there on SharePoint protection, or?
Yeah. I mean, and again, you can leverage, you can leverage snapshots inside of, the snapshots that we provide with FlashArray to take snapshots of those SharePoint environments. So again, it's a nicely integrated solution. I don't think there's any issue with, it's all virtual machines in the end. So, the capabilities that Veeam have built integrating into FlashArray, it's not really dependent so much on the applications running inside of the virtual machine.
No, not at all. And just one other point on the SharePoint fact: when we go to run a backup of SharePoint, we can ensure that it's application consistent, because we do have application-aware image processing built into Veeam, so we can ensure application consistency, whether it's from just a snapshotting perspective or from a backup perspective. So you can ensure that the data that you're going to get, the backup that you're going to get, is good.
Yeah, that's critical. Absolutely critical. So great point. Let's see. Next question comes from Tyson. Let's see. He's asking, do you dirty your backup if we are talking about database backups being used in a dev environment? Sean or David, not sure who wants to take that one.
I can tackle that one, right? So we actually run into this scenario a lot, right? Because a lot of larger companies probably have dedicated SQL DBAs, right? And SQL DBAs have been doing SQL backups for, Lord, who knows how long, right? Forever. So they're kind of stuck in their ways, right? That they like to do their log-based backups. And here we come as Veeam, and we want to take a backup of the SQL Server. Right. So the good news is we do have options built into Veeam. So even if you still want to get an application consistent backup from an image level with Veeam, we can do so without interfering with the transaction logs. Right. So you would just turn off any type of transaction log handling within Veeam. That way we still get a clean backup, and the DBAs can still do what they want to do. But also note that because we do run into environments where customers want more point-in-time restores that SQL logs give them versus an image level backup, right, which is a point in time. So we actually have that built into Veeam as well, right? So if you're not already doing log backups natively, you can actually have Veeam do log-based backups to augment your image-based backups, right? So we can actually do like an image-based backup, let's say once a day, but every 15 minutes we can do a log-based backup as well on top of that.
Excellent. All right. Very nice. Let's see. Next question. This is for you, David. What about Pure Storage, FlashArray, storage optimization? What are the capabilities around that?
I mean, bluntly, we've built like a lot of other vendors, we've built in, we have compression and we have dedupe that's built into the Purity operating system. And it's just, it's matured over time, but you can just send it just in the same way we do with Veeam. You can just send a stream of data, to the Pure Storage, to FlashArray X or FlashArray C. It's entirely the same code on both.
Next question, they're asking about the client. And I'm guessing they're referring to the Veeam backup client. I could be wrong, but
yes.
What operating systems is that available for?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question, and that's probably for me. So Veeam backup and replication, the actual console itself, it is a Windows-based installation. Okay, so it does require Windows, and it only runs on Windows. Yeah, the Veeam backup server itself is a Windows-only installation. That is the only supported client for Veeam backup and replication, the console. But the other components within Veeam, we do have support for Linux and Windows for both our proxy and repository components.
Okay, All right. Well, sorry about the audio trouble here right at the end, but it looks like we've been answering a lot of these questions. Maybe we should let's try one more and keep our fingers here that the audio continues to work. And that is, how do people, potential, IT pros on this event, maybe try out this solution or learn more about this solution, with it being both from Veeam and Pure? Kind of what's your recommendation on that?
I mean, I can certainly take that. So we actually have you can actually do a test drive of this solution in our, I think if it's not live right now, it's not too far off being live. So either now or very shortly, you can actually request a demo from Pure Storage online, and we will show you, some of the technology, especially around the snapshots and flash array that myself and Sean have talked about today. So just go to the purestorage.com website.
Yep. And to just kind of cap that one off, if you have already, let's say a flash array in-house, right, and you're already using flash array for storage today, and you're looking to try out the Veeam portion of the solution, you can download a free 30-day trial on our website. That's uninhibited, so you have full functionality for 30 days.
Excellent. All right. Sounds like it could be very easy to try out these solutions and see how Veeam and Pure Storage together can, provide the level of data protection that I know so many companies out there really need, and the level of availability and performance that, more applications are just demanding these days. So this has been a really great, really educational event. I know we still have a number of questions we'll have to respond to after the event. We just didn't have time for all the excellent questions that came in, but I do appreciate everyone out there supporting the event today and asking so many great questions. Before we go, I want to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. That's going to Adam Palafox from California. Congratulations, Adam Palafox.
Congratulations.
From California. Before we go, any last words, Sean or David?
No, I mean, he probably could have used that gift card last week, though. It was Prime Day last week. So.
No, and also, I mean, I just wanted to echo your comments, David. I appreciate the attention and all the great questions. So, thank you very much.
No, absolutely. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Don't forget, before you go, download that Joint Solutions brief. It's there in the Handouts tab if you haven't done that already. And then, of course, also visit purestorage.com and veeam.com. Try out these solutions for yourself and see how they can improve your data protection and availability. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.